My name is Aurelia Quinn Hart, 17 years old. I used to think families were like city blueprints, orderly lines that made sense if you stood far enough back. But blueprints don't sigh when you enter a room or go quiet around your name. Blueprints don't weigh a child on a scale labeled mine and not mine. When I was 8, my mother married Garrett, a developer with a laugh big enough to fill a kitchen. He built me a treehouse and taught me how to ride a bike without training wheels, jogging behind me with both hands out like a promise. For 2 years, I believed him. Then Connor arrived, pink and loud and instantly adored, and somewhere in that sleepless fog, Garrett set me down. It started small, the way neglect always does. He filmed every one of Connor's firsts. First step, first faceplant, first syllable. While my firsts lost their category. When I won the spelling bee, Garrett was underwater at work. When Connor got a plastic participation trophy, Garrett posted about grit and legacy for a week. He's Garrett's biological son, Mom would say. It's different. Different looked like expensive baseball bats for Connor and me, folding t-shirts at a neighbor's farm for school supplies. Different sounded like Garrett introducing me as not really mine at barbecues, a joke that matched the punchline in his eyes. Different felt like knocking before entering my own living room. By 14, Different had a ledger. By 16, it had interest. Senior year, I kept a 4.2 GPA and 2 jobs because numbers were the only proof anyone could see. When a partial scholarship arrived from state, I needed $8,000 more per year. I brought the letter to dinner like a trophy that could not be ignored. That's wonderful, honey, Mom said, relief blooming on her face. Garrett didn't look up. $8,000 is a lot of money. I can take loans, I said quickly. Or go to community college, he replied. Practical. Connor speared a pea. Didn't you say my college fund starts this year, Dad? That's different, Garrett said without blinking. You're my son. I'm not paying for someone else's kid when I need to worry about my own. Someone else's kid. The words didn't slam into me. They slotted into place like a brick I'd been carrying for years. That night, our walls heard more honest sentences than I had in years. Through the thin paint, Mom's voice, tight. She's been part of this family for years. Garrett's voice, colder. She's your daughter, not mine. I've done enough. Roof, food, that's where my responsibility ends. I stopped asking to be sat at the table and started taking notes. Once you look for proof, you find it everywhere. Our faces didn't rhyme. Connor was a copy of Garrett. Same jaw, same summer brown eyes. I was left over. Cleaning Garrett's office one Saturday, I found a shoebox labeled taxes in a drawer that stuck. Beneath W-2s and brittle receipts was a stack of photos, the top ones blameless, ski trips, a ribbon cutting. Near the bottom, Mom standing in late afternoon light, round with me, leaning into a man I'd never seen. On the back, in her handwriting, David and me, 7 months. The world narrowed to 2 inches of glossy paper. That evening, I put the photo on the counter between us like a scale. Who is David? I asked. Mom's face emptied out. Where did you find that? Who is he? Someone I dated before Garrett. Were you dating him when you got pregnant with me? Her nod was a tremor. I felt it in my teeth. Is he my father? Another nod, thinner. He left when I told him I was pregnant, she said quickly, like ripping gauze. Garrett never knew. He just assumed. You've been lying for 17 years. I was protecting you, she said, the oldest story. He would have left if he'd known. He did leave, I said, just not the person you think. I didn't sleep that night. I searched instead, names, cities, the rhythm of a vanished surname. David Brennan had a LinkedIn profile with an old headshot and exactly 1 public post about restoration projects. His company website listed a general inbox and a phone number that rang to life with a cautious hello. I think I'm your daughter, I said, and the quiet on the line held its breath. He asked for my mother's full name and a date. He whispered it back like a password he'd kept in his pocket for a decade. We met in a cafe 3 towns over. The moment he stepped through the door, my face changed. I had his eyes, his nose, his smile when he tried to hide worry with kindness. We didn't hug. We made space for what was true. The paternity test took a week. I held the envelope in both hands and opened it at my bus stop as if God wrote emails now. 99% match. A number so clean it didn't need adjectives. David cried. Not the cinematic kind. Quietly, like a man who had been punished for imagining hope. He told me things Mom never had. I laughed in my sleep. I wore shoes on the wrong feet for a month when I was 3. He sent emails for years that bounced back with a system message as cold as a slammed door. He showed me one he'd sent the week of my 8th birthday. Subject line, "For Aurelia's treehouse." He'd asked if he could contribute. He'd never received a reply. I wanted to fall into his arms. I wanted to drag my mother into the room. I wanted to break something expensive and call it justice. I did none of those things. I asked him about his life now. He had a girlfriend, a rescue dog, a porch with morning sun. He asked me about mine. I told him I wanted to study family therapy because if you can't fix your own house, maybe you learn how to build better ones. We met 3 more times in neutral places. Each time I felt the weight inside my chest redistribute, less stone, more rail. David didn't make promises he couldn't keep. He offered one he could. I'm here, if you want me to be. It should have been enough to keep a secret until graduation. It wasn't. Secrets are mold. They grow in the dark and make you cough in rooms you love. Garrett's birthday circled the calendar like a shark, a week before Father's Day. Mom planned a party with linen napkins and business associates who liked open bars. Garrett would hold court at the grill, telling stories that made him larger than the lawn. He would toast Connor's baseball statistics. He would not say my name. I bought a box that looked expensive and lined it in tissue. I printed the lab result on heavyweight paper that wouldn't curl when handled by men who shouted. I folded it with the care of a blueprint and placed it inside. I didn't plan to scream. I planned to be exact. Garrett loved proof, the kind that excuses him. I would give him proof of a different kind and watch the math redraw the room. Mom saw me wrapping the box and misread the tenderness. "Thank you," she whispered, as if a bow could save us. I almost told her. I almost asked her to do it herself. I almost believed she might. Instead, I said, "He'll never forget it." I lay awake the night before the party, counting the ways the story could go wrong. In every version, Connor is the one who gets hurt. He's the only person in the house who loves without a ledger. I promised the ceiling that I would hold his hands when the shouting started. I promised myself I would not back down. In the morning, I placed the box on my dresser and looked at my face in the mirror until it stopped shaking. I could see David's features in mine. I could also see my mother's stubbornness, which is either a ruin or a raft, depending on where you aim it. I lifted the box. I wasn't going to blow up a family. I was going to detonate a lie. By late afternoon, the backyard looked like a magazine spread. String lights scalloped between maple branches, rented heaters breathing discreet halos, a hired bartender polishing glasses until his reflection approved. Garrett loved a stage he could mow. He moved through the crowd with a tong in one hand, steak fat hissing like applause. Mom floated 3 feet behind him in a summer dress, apologizing for the humidity to guests who were already complaining about it on their phones. I stood at the sliding door with my gift in both hands and memorized the exits like a girl in a fire drill. Connor spotted me first. "Penny!" he yelled, my family nickname that still felt like a secret handshake. He skidded to the stoop in dirt-striped socks, cheeks red from running drills with Garrett's golf buddy. "You coming to the cake?" he asked, breathless. "Mom says we sing after the toast." "I'll be there," I said, smoothing his hair back into a reasonable direction. My hands knew how to fix small things. I wish they could fix this. Inside, the dining table bowed under the weight of casseroles from people who equated love with cream. On the far side, Garrett's business partner, Roger, told the same story he told at every party about the time their firm outmaneuvered a competitor for a downtown parcel. Each time he told it, Garrett's role got bigger. Mine got shorter. Mom clinked a glass. Conversations thinned. Garrett lifted his beer, ready. "To family," he began, voice relaxed, confident, the audience already on his side. "To building things that last. Houses, sure, but also—" "I have something for you," I said, stepping forward as if my legs belonged to someone older and braver. 30 faces turned. Garrett blinked. In 7 years, I had never interrupted one of his toasts. "Aurelia," he said carefully, "we're in the middle." "It'll take a second," I said, holding out the box. "I wanted to thank you for everything you've done." Mom's head snapped toward me. A smile appeared on her mouth like a reflex. Her eyes did something else entirely. "Penny, later," she whispered. "No," I said softly. Garrett took the box in both hands, the way men do when they expect cufflinks. He peeled the ribbon with ceremonious thrift and folded the tissue back like it was important to save. When he saw the paper, he frowned. Not at the numbers yet, but at the absence of a brand. He read the header, then the words, then the paragraph that ended with 99.9%. The room sat down around him. "What is this?" he said. "Not a question. A weather report." "The truth," I said. "You've always told people I'm not really your daughter. Turns out you were right." Someone's fork hit a plate with a bell-like sound. Roger stared at his shoes. Patricia, Garrett's sister, lifted her chin the way women do when they need altitude to breathe. Mom moved to Garrett's elbow and tore the paper from his hands. "Where did you get this? Aurelia, where?" "From a lab," I replied, polite, "and a cheek swab, and David Brennan." At the sound of his name, half the room shifted. It was like saying flood in a basement. "This is a prank," Garrett said, voice rethreading itself with anger. "You think this is funny?" "Nothing about this is funny," I said, and for a dizzy second I wished it were. Wished we were the kind of family who could laugh this off like a sitcom with a B plot. "It's a paternity test. He's my father." "Penny," Mom hissed, cheeks slick with panic. "Not here. Not like this." "I've been told not here, not like this for 17 years, I said. "Turns out there's never a good time to tell the truth in a house built on silence." A small voice cut the air. "What's everyone looking at?" Connor stood at the edge of the circle, clutching a paper plate folded like a taco over a brownie. He glanced from Garrett's face to mine, reading the room with that brutal child honesty adults forget. "Your sister," Garrett began, then stopped himself so fast the sentence swerved. She's causing a scene." "Half-sister," I corrected gently, crouching so we were eye level. "But I'm still your sister. We share Mom. That doesn't change." He considered. "Then why is Dad mad?" "Because he just found out something big," I said. "Something Mom knew. Something I just found out." He looked at Mom. "Were you lying?" Mom's mouth opened and closed. "I was protecting our family." "From what?" Connor asked, the way kids do when the shortest path is the truth. "From the truth?" Garrett inhaled like pain. He straightened to face the crowd, hunting for steadiness in numbers. "Everyone out," he said. "Party's over." "Almost," I said softly. "There's one more thing." Several guests made small animal sounds. Roger placed his beer on the nearest flat surface and edged toward the patio door. Garrett's Aunt Grace texted with the intensity of a dispatch center. Someone took a picture. The phone flash popped like lightning and made the dogs in the neighbor's yard bark. "David offered to pay for my college," I said, voice level. "All 4 years. Room and board. He wants to make up for lost time. He's invited me to spend the summer in Colorado." "You're not going anywhere," Garrett growled. "I turn 18 in 2 weeks," I said. "I'm legally an adult. Mom can't stop me, and you certainly can't." Patricia clucked her tongue. "This is hardly appropriate dinner conversation." "It would have been more appropriate 17 years ago," I said. "But here we are." Garrett's mother, a tiny woman who could puncture tires with her stare, finally threw in her stone. I always knew something was off. Timing never made sense. The way that girl acted, always watching, never open. "I told you, Garrett." "Grandma," Connor said, eyes glassy. "Are you saying Penny is bad?" "She's saying I didn't belong," I said. "That's not the same as being bad." "Enough," Mom said, voice breaking. "We'll talk upstairs." "No," I said, "because what you and I built upstairs is why we're down here." Garrett turned to Mom, the anger on his face fissuring into something less stable. "Did you lie to me so I'd marry you?" Mom whispered my name like it could pull us back a year. Then she nodded. A low whistle unfurled from the kitchen island, where Tony, a golf club friend with more opinions than trophies, watched like a man at a prize fight. "Damn!" "Get out," Garrett said. His voice had lost its party trick. "Everyone get out of my house." Guests didn't have to be told twice. Purses, jackets, a stampede of muttered apologies. In a minute, it was only us. Garrett holding the wreckage, Mom shaking, Connor breathing too fast, and me with the box in my hands like evidence after a verdict. Garrett walked a tight line in the carpet with his eyes. 9 years I've been raising another man's child, he said. Not to me, not to anyone, just to the air that had gone hard. 9 years. I've paid for food I hated buying, clothes I hated seeing, a mouth that said my name like it owed me. "Garrett," Mom said, a warning that was really a plea. He laughed, one dry sound. "Love her? I resented her. Every day I resented her." He turned to me. "And you? You planned this. You waited for the biggest audience." I waited for courage, I said. Yours never came. Mine did. You could have told me alone. You told the entire town I wasn't really your daughter, I said. At school, at church, at Safeway, to Mrs. Patterson near the grapefruits. You were theatrical first. Connor began to cry, the hiccuping kind that makes your own lungs ache in sympathy. I slipped my arms around him and let him soak my shirt. Am I losing my sister? He asked, voice muffled. No, I said, kissing his hair. You can't lose what tells you jokes at breakfast. He hiccuped a laugh against my shoulder. Will you still come to my games? I'll try, I said honestly. I'll call. We'll make our own schedule. Garrett, who had been pacing in circles, stopped and pinned Mom with a look that threw heat. How many people knew? Your sister? Your mother? Who else watched me? His voice shook, the word fool unspoken but heavy. Raise another man's child and said nothing? Mom's silence was an answer. I found David, I said. He showed me emails. He wrote for years. You blocked him. Mom sagged, like someone let the air out of her. I was scared. He left. He says he didn't, I said. He says you told him to. Garrett stared at her like a blueprint that had been mislabeled. He looked at me next, and for a moment I saw something that wasn't rage, the outline of a man who might have tried. The moment passed. What happens now? He asked, as if a judge might walk in and sentence us to a better ending. Now I go to Colorado, I said. I study. I build something that doesn't need lies to stand. And me? He asked, the smallest question he'd ever asked me. You, I swallowed. You focus on Connor. You apologize to a kid who already forgave you. He looked at the boy in my arms and flinched like the truth had touched him with a hot hand. I set Connor down gently. He wiped his face with the back of his palm like a much smaller child. You'll call me? He asked. Every night? Every night we can, I said. Mom reached for me. Aurelia, please. We can keep talking, I said, but not here, not tonight. Headlights flared in the driveway. Through the blinds, I saw David step out of a rental car, unsure if he should knock on a life. His face, my face, tilted toward the front door like prayer. Garrett followed my gaze. That's him? That's him, I said. He looks like me. Yeah, Garrett said, an old story loosening in his throat. He does. Connor pressed his hand to the glass and waved. David waved back. Big, goofy, whole shoulder, like a man who'd been practicing love even without an audience. Garrett closed his eyes. Get your things, he said hoarsely, before I change my mind. I already packed, I said, and I didn't apologize for the efficiency. I hugged Mom. Her shoulder shook under my cheek. We'll try again, she whispered, from the truth this time. Maybe, I said, but we start as two people, not a myth. I picked up my bag, lifted the box back into my hands, the paper inside now proof, not weapon, and walked toward the door that had always been heavier for me. Behind me, Garrett's voice rose again, muffled by the hallway. I didn't turn around. I had nothing left to translate. On the porch, I paused. The air tasted like rain remembered. David opened his arms, not to claim, just to offer. I stepped into the space between us. It felt less like leaving and more like arriving. From the living room window, Connor's palm flattened against the glass. I lifted my hand and pressed it to the air, our fingerprints not quite touching. He smiled through his tear salt and mouthed a word I didn't need to hear to know. Sister. I nodded. Always. The drive away from that house didn't feel like victory. It felt like decompression after holding my breath for years. Every block farther, the air changed shape, lighter, but still sharp around the edges. David didn't ask questions at first. He just drove, hands steady on the wheel, headlights stretching the road like ribbon. You okay? He asked finally, eyes still on the asphalt. I looked down at my palms. They were trembling. I think so. You don't have to be brave right now, he said gently. I'm not, I admitted. I'm just empty. He nodded, and that silence between us said more than sympathy ever could. When we reached the hotel, he didn't try to make small talk. He carried my bag, handed me a key, and said, Sleep. Tomorrow we start over. I slept like someone who'd been awake for a decade. The next morning, sunlight reached through the curtains like forgiveness it didn't owe me. My phone had exploded overnight. Dozens of missed calls and texts from Mom, and 2 from an unknown number that I knew by rhythm belonged to Garrett. I didn't open them. David was already downstairs in the breakfast room. 2 cups of coffee waited at our table. You look better, he said. I feel worse. That's normal. He handed me a sugar packet. Crisis detox. When I didn't smile, he leaned back, eyes scanning me the way you study something fragile to see where it bends. You don't have to hate her, you know. or him. I don't, I said softly. That's what hurts most. Around noon, Mom called again. This time I answered. Her voice cracked before my name even finished. Aurelia, please, I need to explain. There's not much left to explain, I said. He's gone, she whispered. Garrett packed a bag last night. Said he needed time to think. Said the house feels haunted. I don't blame him. I should have told him the truth years ago, she said. Every time I looked at you, I thought maybe if I pretended hard enough, we could all believe it. That we were normal. Pretending isn't love, Mom. I know that now. Her voice thinned, desperate. I saw David's car. You left with him? Yes. Is he treating you well? He's kind, careful. He doesn't talk over me. She exhaled like that answer hurt and healed her at once. I'm glad. I really am. I need space, I said, for both of us. I understand. She paused before hanging up. Tell him I'm sorry too. I will. But I didn't. Not yet. Some apologies need to be earned, not delivered. That week, David and I stayed in the city near my old school while the dust settled. Each day he took me somewhere new, like a father relearning a map he used to know by heart. On Tuesday, we walked by the river. He pointed at the skyline. That one, he said, nodding toward a mid-rise I recognized from local news, was one of my first projects. It's ugly, I said. He laughed, full and real. Yeah, I know, but it stayed standing. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. We talked for hours, about what had happened, about what hadn't, about the kind of person each of us wanted to be, now that lies weren't directing traffic. On Thursday, Mom texted again. Connor won his game. He asked if you saw his hit online. I clicked the link and watched my little brother sprint awkwardly toward first base. His grin, wide, toothy, unstoppable, cut through everything. I texted back, tell him I'm proud. I'll call tomorrow. Her reply came a minute later. He misses you. We both do. I typed and deleted 4 different responses before sending just one. Me too. By the weekend, David had to return to Colorado. He invited me to come with him. Not to escape, he said carefully. To start. I stared at the city's skyline one last time. Every building looked like a memory I hadn't consented to keep. Okay, I said, let's start. We packed what little I had. 2 bags, a folded acceptance letter, and a lifetime's worth of unfinished sentences. As we crossed the state line, David glanced over. You sure you don't want to check your messages? No, I said. If it's important, they'll find a better way to say it. He smiled, the kind of small smile that lives behind understanding. You sound like an engineer. I was raised by one, I said, even if he didn't want to be my dad. That night, we stopped at a rest area somewhere between states. David handed me his phone. Read this, he said. On the screen was an email thread dating back more than a decade. From David Brennan to Lila Hart. Subject, Aurelia. I know you don't want me in her life, but I'm still her father. If you ever need help, if she ever asks about me, tell her I never stopped trying. And then dozens more, variations of the same plea. Birthdays, school years, unanswered attempts. I scrolled until the years blurred. My chest ached. She blocked you? He nodded. Every address I had. Why show me now? Because you deserve the truth without a filter, he said. Even if it hurts her. Even if it hurts me. I closed the phone. It hurts, I admitted, but it's clean pain. That's new. He reached over and squeezed my hand. When we arrived in Colorado, the air was thinner, sharper. The mountains looked like something ancient waiting to be forgiven. David's home sat on a hill overlooking pine trees that hummed with wind. He showed me the guest room. The sheets smelled of cedar. On the dresser was a framed photo, me as a toddler, hair wild, eyes bright, cut from an old snapshot he must have printed years ago. I kept it, he said, noticing my stare, when I couldn't keep you. I didn't know whether to cry or thank him, so I did both. The first week was quiet. We hiked, cooked, talked late into the night. He asked what I wanted from college. I told him family therapy. He smiled like someone hearing poetry and blueprints. You'll be good at that, he said. You already know what not to do. When classes started that fall, he helped me move into the dorm. Before he left, he hugged me. Not tentative, not claiming, just solid. You call if you need anything, he said, even if it's just silence. I will. That evening, I finally called home. Connor answered on the first ring. Penny, you saw my game, right? I did. You were amazing. I hit a double. I know. You'll be in the majors before I graduate. He laughed, and for a moment we were just siblings again. No hyphens, no courtrooms, no secrets. Then he said softly, Dad's not mad at you anymore. Which dad? I asked before I could stop myself. Garrett. He says he deserved it. I swallowed the knot in my throat. Tell him thank you. I will. He misses you, you know. I miss him too, sometimes. Connor hesitated. Are you ever coming back? I don't think I can, buddy, but I'll visit. Promise? Promise. He was quiet for a beat. Mom's been crying a lot. She'll stop, I said, when the truth finally feels lighter than the lie. He didn't understand, but he said okay anyway. When I hung up, I stared at the mountains outside my window. Somewhere, back home, Mom was probably sitting at the kitchen table replaying every moment that led here. Garrett was probably walking through that echoing house, realizing that absence makes noise, too. I didn't hate them. I just couldn't be part of their version of family anymore. Because what I'd learned, the hard way, the only way, was that sometimes walking away isn't about anger. It's about finally choosing peace. And peace, like truth, doesn't whisper. It just arrives. The first winter in Colorado was the kind that teaches you how to breathe again. The cold pressed its hand against every window, but it didn't feel cruel. It felt clarifying, like the universe was telling me that starting over was supposed to sting before it warmed. I learned the rhythm of David's world faster than I expected. Mornings started with coffee strong enough to wake the mountains. Evenings ended with his dog, Jasper, snoring at our feet while we watched bad documentaries about architecture. It wasn't the life I'd lost. It was the one that had been waiting for me. 3 months after I'd moved in, an envelope arrived. Familiar handwriting, trembling across the paper. Mom. Aurelia, I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope for it. Garrett has moved out for now. He's angry, but not cruel. Connor misses you. He keeps asking when you'll come home. I told him you have a new home now, but that doesn't mean he's lost you. I've started therapy. It's hard. I realized I lied so often I forgot what truth felt like. You were brave enough to remind me. I love you, always. Mom. I read it 3 times before setting it down on the counter. She's trying, David said quietly, pouring coffee. Trying doesn't erase 17 years, I said. No, he agreed. But it's where everything worth having begins. I hated that he was right. Spring came early that year. The snow melted in ribbons down the mountainsides, and David insisted we hike the switchback trail, 4 miles up, 2 down, each turn a view so beautiful it bordered on cruel. At the top, we sat on a flat rock overlooking the valley. She looks like you, he said suddenly. Who? Your mother. I remember her at your age. Same fire, same need to control what hurts. I'm nothing like her. He smiled. You say that, but you forgive people faster than they deserve. That's her too. I didn't argue. I just stared at the horizon and wondered what forgiveness would even look like. By summer, I had finished my first year of college, all A's, a small scholarship for family therapy majors, and a part-time job at a community center helping kids with blended families talk about their feelings without choking on them. That's where I realized the irony. Sometimes we teach what we're still learning. The night after finals, I came home to find David sitting on the porch, staring at an unopened envelope. From him, he said. Garrett? He nodded. He reached out, wants to meet, says he has questions about your childhood that only I can answer. What did you say? I told him I'd ask you first. I thought about the man who had raised me and resented me in equal measure. The man whose voice could still echo like a warning through my head. Do it, I said finally. If he's asking questions, maybe he's ready to hear the answers. They met at a diner halfway between Colorado and my hometown. Neutral ground. When David returned, I was waiting on the porch again. Well? He sat beside me. He's not what I expected. How so? Broken. In a human way. Not angry anymore. Just smaller. I didn't know whether to feel sorry or relieved. What did he say? He said he wished he'd known the truth from the start. That maybe he could have loved you differently. I swallowed hard. He couldn't. That kind of love only exists when it's chosen. David looked at me, eyes gentle. He told me he's proud of you. That was the sentence that undid me. I didn't cry right away. I just let the words sit between us until they thawed something I'd thought was permanent. Father's Day came again, the second one since the party. I bought 2 cards. The first to Garrett said, "Thank you for giving me a home when I needed one, for keeping the lights on, even when your heart wasn't. I hope you find peace in the truth. Aurelia." The second to David read, "Happy first Father's Day. Thank you for finding me when you didn't have to, for choosing me when you could have stayed gone." David read it at breakfast, eyes wet. "Best card I've ever gotten," he said. "You haven't seen my handwriting on a rent check," I teased. He laughed, and it was the first time his laugh didn't sound weighed down by what-ifs. A week later, Mom called again. Her voice was steadier now. "Garrett and I are in counseling," she said. "I don't know if we'll stay married, but we're finally honest. That's something." "It is." "Connor wants to visit you this summer," she added. "Would you be okay with that?" I didn't even hesitate. Yes! When Connor arrived in July, he stepped off the plane with a baseball glove hanging from his backpack and a grin that could have powered the runway lights. "Colorado's weird," he said. "The air feels different." "It's thinner," I said. "You get used to it." He stayed for 2 weeks. We hiked, made pancakes that looked like maps, and talked about everything except the party. On the last night, he said, "Dad says you found where you belong." "Yeah," I said softly. "I think I did." By the end of the year, everything that had broken was still cracked, but mended. Garrett and Mom were living separately, but spoke every day. Connor was thriving. David was teaching me how to drive a manual car on the empty road by the ridge, swearing softly every time I stalled. "Families," he said once as the car lurched forward, "are like gears. You grind until you learn the rhythm. And then you move." I smiled. "I think we're finally moving." On Christmas morning, I opened a small box from David. Inside was a silver compass engraved with a single word, "Here." "Because no matter where you go," he said, "you'll always know where you are." I wore it like a reminder, not of what I'd lost, but of everything I'd built from it. That night, after dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from Garrett. "Merry Christmas, Aurelia. Thank you for the card. I meant what I told David. You're the best thing I ever helped raise." For the first time, I believed him. I looked out at the falling snow, at the glow from the kitchen where David was humming off-key while washing dishes, and I realized something simple. The past hadn't been erased, it had just been redrawn. New boundaries, new rooms, new truth. Families, I decided, are never perfect structures. They're renovations, and every once in a while, if you're lucky, the foundation holds. 5 years later, I sat in my own office with a sign on the door that read, "Aurelia Hart, LMFT, Family Therapy and Mediation." The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd built a career out of helping people untangle the very knots that once strangled my own family. The space smelled of coffee and pine wood. David had carved the shelves himself and mailed them to me the week I opened. On the corner desk sat the silver compass he gave me that first Christmas in Colorado. It still pointed to here. When clients asked why I chose this field, I told them the truth. Because I learned early that secrets don't keep families together. They rot them from the inside out. And sometimes, if the session was quiet enough, I'd add softly, "I learned that truth can rebuild things too." I got married last spring. David walked me down the aisle. Mom sat in the second row with Garrett beside her. They weren't remarried, but they'd become something stranger. Friends who had learned how to forgive each other without forgetting. Connor, now a lanky teenager, stood next to my husband as the best man, his tie crooked, his grin steady. When the officiant asked who gave me away, David said, "No one. She found her own way here." And Garrett, surprising everyone, added quietly, "But we're both proud to stand beside her." It was the kind of silence afterward that felt holy. My daughter was born 6 months ago. With David's smile and Garrett's stubborn jaw, life's way of reminding me that nothing is ever simple and that love leaves fingerprints everywhere. Mom flew out to help. She cried when she first held the baby. "You're so gentle with her," she whispered. "I learned what not to do," I said, but without anger. She nodded, understanding the difference between resentment and reflection. Garrett sent a package the week after. Inside was a hand-carved wooden rocking chair, smooth and steady, with a note tucked beneath the seat. "Every baby deserves to be rocked by someone who loves them unconditionally." It was the first time he'd ever said it that clearly, that he knew I hadn't always been. It was his way of promising the next generation would be different. On Father's Day, 2 cards sat on my kitchen counter, one addressed to David, one addressed to Garrett. Because forgiveness, I'd learned, isn't about choosing sides. It's about keeping balance. David said, "Thank you for showing me what choice looks like when it's love, for proving that finding someone doesn't have to mean losing someone else." Garrett said, "Thank you for what you gave me, even when it was hard to give, for teaching me the cost of silence and the value of truth." That afternoon, David came over for dinner. We sat on the porch watching the sunset as Connor played catch with my husband in the yard. My daughter slept against my shoulder, her heartbeat soft and sure. "You built something good," David said, nodding toward the house, the yard, the life. I built it from chaos, I said with a smile. He chuckled. That's what architects do, and you, well, you were always a planner. Later that night, after everyone left, I walked into the nursery. The baby stirred, tiny hands reaching out in her sleep. I touched the rocking chair, tracing my fingers over the carved grain, and thought about every person who had once shaped me. By love, by lies, by leaving. David's patience, Mom's fear. Garrett's resentment that turned somehow into grace. Connor's unwavering, uncomplicated love. They'd all built a piece of me. And maybe that was the point. Families aren't defined by who stays, but by who helps you grow strong enough to stand when they're gone. When people ask if I ever regretted exposing the truth that night, I tell them no. Because truth didn't destroy us. It set the old version of us on fire so something honest could rise from the ashes. The girl who once begged to be chosen finally understood something her younger self couldn't. Love isn't owed by blood. It's built by choice. And every day since, I've chosen it. For David, who found me. For Garrett, who learned. For Mom, who finally told the truth. For Connor, who never stopped believing family could survive anything. And now for my daughter, who will grow up knowing she never has to earn her place in anyone's heart. That night, as the baby slept, I whispered to her, "You'll hear stories about where you come from someday, about mistakes and second chances, about how families fall apart and put themselves back together, but just know this." I brushed a strand of her dark hair from her forehead. "You are loved not because of who you are to anyone else, but because you are you, and that's enough." The rocking chair creaked softly in the dark. The compass on my desk pointed, as always, to here. And for the first time, I realized that here wasn't a place. It was a decision.